Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our fireside chat with the guys from Imperial, leveraging technology for sustainability. My name is Matt Horn from Axions UK, and I'm with my co-host Ed Brooke-Taylor from Juniper Networks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Matt. This is the fireside chat. It actually felt hotter in the reception when it was in. I don't know if anyone else spotted that, but nice to meet everyone. Joined on stage by a really great customer of ours. There's several customers in the audience, but Imperial are with us, and they took a brave decision to move over to Juniper for their campus environment, and have now done a full transformation from a networking perspective, and we've done wireless across their sites, but we're really today going to talk about what they're doing and building on that. So I'm welcoming Rob Sherwood, Head of Digital Campus, and Andrew Bottomley from a Delivery Manager for Digital Campus as well. So thank you very much. And over to you, Matt.
Okay, so actually I think, Ed, your first question.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. You see me practice this a fair bit. Rob, Imperial has made significant strides in sustainability. Could you tell us what key strategies are having the most impact?
Yeah, it's a tough one to choose where to begin, I think, there. And as we're trying to make the point yesterday, it's definitely a journey. And I can't help but think some of the stories have been told by UCL, by Birmingham, and others, kind of these different areas as they reach towards sustainability strategies, smart campus strategies, and where we are in relation to all of that. I think the most significant things that Imperial has done before we get into the technology side of things are really imbuing sustainability throughout its mission. It's everywhere, down into the education products that we offer. We have a very engaged student body. So everywhere you look, there's teams trying to work on becoming more sustainable, however that means, whether it's environmentally, financially, and socially. And I think the immediate decisions that have been most impactful have been what our estates colleagues are doing, so I can't take any credit for that in terms of decarbonising, taking steam out of the network, for example, making our combined heat and power plant much more efficient. I think somebody else mentioned they buy in gas to fire a CHP. Those things are massive, huge, kind of intimidatingly big things to try and solve. And that's really been the focus on that side of things in terms of that very core infrastructure and how you can bring your carbon footprint down. And on the other side of things, I suppose where we were going with yesterday is more that experience side of things. And we're right at the beginning of that in terms of seeing how that is impacting sustainability. But my feeling is that it's more on the social angle at the moment. And while we are making data available so that people can understand emissions and things like that, it's actually about trying to make an environment that students want to come to and to sustain that, because in the end that's what makes us financially viable as an organisation. So that's where we've kind of been leaning towards, because as we talked through yesterday, the mobile app approach that we're looking at, which benefits from our investments in infrastructure, that is the way to kind of improve the student experience. So there are lots of other things we could begin to talk about, but I think they'll probably come up in some of the other questions that you might fire us.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks for that, Rob. And Andrew, as a technology delivery manager, you've had a hand in deploying these sustainability initiatives. What challenges have you faced along the way?
Well, I mean, there are many challenges. I think I just wanted to touch a little bit more on, we showed you the sustainability Power BI dashboards yesterday, and we were saying they give the opportunity to challenge with vendors. I mean, of our carbon footprint, 30% of that is tied to ICT. And one of the things we've done is have conversations with our supply chain, and we get so much equipment delivered, and that now comes in the most minimal packaging it can, and any of that packaging gets taken away. So we no longer have enormous boxes delivered for every laptop that we just don't need. So it's kind of a very real example of what we've done there. Some of the challenges, I mean, it was really interesting just watching what Birmingham showed. We're also working on a smart campus model. We have a different 3D model than the one we showed you yesterday. Our space team are working on that, and we've been working with them it's not quite been, we've not decided that's the way that we're definitely going in the way that Birmingham have. But we're still getting to work with them on that, which is great. And we're leveraging the data infrastructure that we talked about previously and the data we've got in to work on some proof of concepts with them, which is fascinating. We'll hopefully move those along. Well, I'd quite like to personally. But one of the an example of a challenge we had, we already have our BMS system integrated with timetabling data so that we can turn on the aircon before events in lecture theatres. There was a desire to do that in a bigger space in the library. So we as an IT team got the data they wanted. We got the occupancy data, and we could give them, you know, the information that said there's no one on level 4. You don't need to have the cooling on. But then when we started to work with our estates, property colleagues, we found that the infrastructure in that building, the particular building, was so old, the mechanical infrastructure, that we couldn't turn off the aircon in small enough units. So it just kind of shows that we can't just do our bit and then hand it over. We just need to work much more collaboratively together. And yesterday we mentioned that we're getting a head of sustainability working between ICT in collaboration with ICT and property. So hopefully that role, I'd like to see that role bringing some of these conversations together in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like there's a lot of technical conversation, a lot of cultural elements. How important is it for you to sort of bring staff and students on that drive towards sustainability?
Well, I think the students are already there. A lot of our students are very switched on about this. They're often doing courses linked to sustainability. I mean, it's been fascinating working with students on the work we've been doing in the app with the 3D campus model, and also the Dream Team, who are the designers. They've run lots of events in rooms like this where we get lots of students, bribe the students with pizza, but we get them there for an evening.
When are they? Yeah.
And then we've done lots of workshops, and it's just fascinating to see what they want. They're very switched on. They've been campaigning for changes in the food, so I think we've stopped serving beef completely. There's been suggestions we might go meat free, but they're telling us what they want, which is helping us define what we then work on.
I think if I can come in, cultural challenges, and there's a point that Birmingham are making. We have that same thing. It's a very different mindset. Like, we run buildings, you do IT, that type of thing. So crossing that barrier has been somewhat of a challenge, but the will is there. We have new leadership in place, and that's really kind of, it makes a bit of a point. It's like this collaboration has to work. So our chief property officer, who's very new to the organisation, is kind of moving in lockstep with our chief information officer, and that's really, really important. It sets that tone for, we're doing this together now. We need to exploit all of the digital opportunities that come with interventions on buildings, new buildings, retrofits, and all of that stuff. So I think the culture thing changes, and it comes from leadership, and it comes from people who are running the operations, being open-minded about collaborating together. So we're kind of in that bit, and so many people have made that point over the last couple of days, and we're all IT experts here, and we need to work with those colleagues, and so that's my take on the culture.
No, and certainly, I know Matt's got a question in a second, but certainly from our perspective as Juniper, often we get diverted just towards the networking side of the business, and what's great at Imperial is that sort of collaboration and sort of end result, outcomes based is what it's all about. And I know when we went through the whole tendering process, a part of what we were offering in terms of student experience and being able to monitor every experience from every device, 150 measurements every single second, was sort of, and the data that all produces is sort of feeds into what you guys are, the great work you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think that actually it does feed in actually to the next question, really. So really for Rob. So, and we've discussed this at length over a couple of months, but you're using the technology to simplify the student experience, really, in a way. How's that helping you? I know it's early days for you. There's a lot that's going on with Imperial. There's apps that you're building and dashboards, and it is that collaborative approach. But it is about the students. So how's that helping them at the moment and the start to their journey?
Well, obviously it's a challenge because we've got to keep the lights on, and we've got to try and find new ways to create value for students. Having a product mindset is helping with that, I think. In terms of student journey, I mean, we talked yesterday through this kind of mobile-first approach that we're kind of taking, and we talked about things like the 3D map, and a colleague from UCL kind of challenging that. What's the use case for that? We expanded on it a bit, but I think to pull this back to infrastructure and how that kind of helps experience, we want to be able to change the way that we interact with students, and that's coming directly from students' feedback. So that is a big challenge for us, but we have to be open to the fact that we can't just continue to deliver what we think they want. We have to kind of find that sweet spot, which is what they need and expect, and the way that we communicate with them is a big part of that. So we've been working on a prototype around dynamic notifications, which will be a kind of collaboration between our communications division, our property division, ourselves, and then others. And that's about how we communicate with students directly, so they have more choice over the communications they receive, so they receive them in mobile, so that that's integrated with other things like 3D map. And that's, it kind of goes back to that interpretation of what a smart campus or a digital campus might be at Imperial. These are big challenges, but they're kind of worth pursuing. And that's why those investments in things like wireless infrastructure are so important, because by using location-based services, those opportunities suddenly become available to us. And using location-based services and geofencing and things like that, you can start to describe how we might change the way that students navigate, receive information. So I don't know if that all sounds like lofty, and it's going to be hard, it's not going to be super, super easy, but I think going back again to one of the slides that the colleagues in Birmingham showed of the architecture they've been putting in place, just kind of looking at it thinking, that's very familiar, because lots of those pieces are there, and we've actually been focusing more on that middleware question, and how we would plug bits into it. And we haven't quite got to that bit with property where we've started to put edge devices in, or manage that via us, but the opportunities are there, and yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this answer.
It's interesting, and I would add, again, going back to the collaboration side of things, you know, when you did go, and this is, you know, talking about Juniper and how we support that, when we did the sort of proof of concepts for the university, it was very clear that what you wanted was, you know, to be able to do location-based services. And we've done a big rollout across your new site up in White City and also in South Ken. And the positioning of all the sort of access points was done through very detailed surveying, which took a very, very long time, more than it did normally. But as a result, you've actually built an environment that you can provide these services from utilising our technology. And shameless plug for Juniper, we're the only vendor that actually builds Bluetooth within the devices without the requirements for beacons. So there's no requirements to change batteries, which is almost like a full-time job with other types of technology. So, you know, it's great that you've engineered that from the ground from our side, and yeah, it's better than retrofitting all these things.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, just to touch on that, we've only got 5 minutes. I'm one of the key things that we've done, that we've talked about in the app, and one of the biggest uses of it currently is an attendance check-in feature, attendance monitoring, other people might call it, and we've built that ourselves within the app, and we rolled it out as a kind of a very long pilot over the last year or so. We've got, I know, 120 rooms, and we're currently using Bluetooth beacons, which we knew we had to use in the short term, but the intention, we knew there was the possibility that this could come with the new Wi-Fi, with the new network. So we've rolled those out, but now we're in the position where we can use the
virtual Bluetooth.
The Bluetooth within the access point themselves to replace immediately. But in time, we can then look at using virtual Bluetooth, which has I don't know what I'm telling you. Has a much narrower, a much smaller, or a much more accurate.
1 to 3 meters.
Yeah, 1 to 3 meters
in the right environment.
But it is kind of key, and we knew that we won't be able to scale a timetable check-in solution that used disposable beacons across the entire teaching and learning space of the university, because, as you said, it's a lot of maintenance. Just doing it from our business school spaces alone as that pilot, I can't remember how many beacons there are, 100, 200 or so, and it's the batteries fail, and
The
you know,
beacons
they're
fail,
kind of
yeah.
limited, and you get a lot of IT support requests about people say, well, I'm trying to check in, and you've got your ICT support desk saying, well, are you close enough to the beacon, and all kinds of issues. So the potential of having that as part of your actual core infrastructure is super important to us, and then what we'll be able to do in the future with virtual Bluetooth is really exciting.
You guys are on a good journey from what I can see anyway, and we're connected with a lot of other universities that, you guys are actually in part of what we call the MIST user group, which is an HE user group with another 25 universities that are Juniper MIST customers who meet regularly and share ideas and knowledge and stuff. And if you're not aware of it and you are a Juniper customer, I'd encourage you to reach out and connect. I think we're pretty much up on time, but we did want to sort of see if there was. Matt, were you going to?
No, I think we are. I think we've. It seems very, key that the technology is certainly helping with the smart campus and that sustainability approach with a lot of initiatives that you guys are moving towards. And I guess we've kind of rewritten the script a few times to think how we could get all of this information into 20 minutes. But does anybody have any questions for the team at Imperial based on sustainability and how they might be using some of this technology to leverage student experience?
Hello. Really, really interesting to hear, and would love to understand more about the choice of going with Juniper. I wondered, with location services, did you have any pushback from students or staff in terms of being tracked and that kind of concern?
Do you want to take that? Or?
Yes. Yes. So currently, we're not tracking you. So currently, it's merely the proximity to a Bluetooth beacon. So we're not doing any tracking. We haven't yet we haven't yet embedded the virtual Bluetooth within our app, which is then where the power comes from. I mean, interestingly, we do have other apps, safety apps, which do explicitly track you. So students are happy or have been happy to sign up for it when they know what they're signing up to. And so I think what we're going to find is it's just a part of explaining. We probably will need to have features which you can enable or disable, maybe, I don't know.
Well, yeah, all of that, and we're designing, students are designing this app that we're building, and they're asking for this functionality, so it's kind of the trade-off. It's like, okay, if you want to know about that stuff, then you've got to enable location services and all these things. Our business school, somewhat, I suppose, slightly more aggressively, was like, well, we're doing timetable check-in as a policy. You have to use this app, you have to sign in, so you have to agree to do that. But again, we're not tracking personal information, and we're not storing that and saving that in that way. So our registry colleagues handle privacy information around what they do with the data on timetable check-ins, for example. But I think it just comes back to the way you tell those stories and kind of line everything up and try not to make decisions with an IT that haven't really been agreed and collaborated on with everyone else at the same time.
And you're looking at using that location services really as an enabler, aren't you?
Yeah.
For the student to help the journey, help in their first few days and their first years to understand more about the campus, what's on the campus, where they can go to, and how they can find further information.
Exactly. Privacy is always going to be an issue, and particularly in our academic communities. The word monitoring isn't a good one to use in a university environment.
Free coffee and a croissant is good as well. Carrot and stick, I guess, is from the business school and others. Are there any other questions out there from anyone? I think we're largely up on time anyway, unless anyone has anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.